All right, so let's take a closer look at some examples. In this section, I'm going to show you some pitch deck storyboards for inspiration, so you can see how the solution slide can fit in the overall pitch deck storyboard and how it fits into the big picture. Now, I'm going to show you some different scenarios for different companies at different stages with different solutions, and then you can see which one could probably be closer to what you are trying to offer. Now, the first example is something you've seen earlier in the other videos we showed. You've seen this in the problem slide. Now, you can see here on the storyboard, we've got 4 different slides. We've got the problem slide, which you're already familiar with. Moving dirt is costly and harmful to the environment. And then we have the second slide, which is the why now. Why is it important? Well, because now there are new regulations. So when companies are bidding on projects, they need that for their request for proposal or request for a quote. They need to show that they are have some kind of environmental solutions where they're reusing the material, so it creates that urgency. And then you have the next slide, which is the general solution. Now, the general solution is a dirt exchange platform that will make it easier for construction sites to collaborate so they can recycle existing soil. Now, recycling will help save them time, save money, and also protect the environment. So on this slide, we have a combination of different things. We've got the general solutions and we've got the general benefits. So we're not saying the benefits of the exact program, but the benefits in general. If companies collaborate and they start reusing material together on a recycling program, these are the general 3 benefits. So this is what a general solution might look like. Now, the next slide is the specific solution. So that's when you reveal your specific product or services. Now, many people call this the product slide or the service slide, or you can call it whatever you want, but really it's more about what is the exact thing that you are offering. So in this particular case, you can see here we use that title again, the Dirt Exchange Platform, because that's what it is. It kind of helps explain what it is. And then with a combination of points on the slides, we're explaining different things. So first of all, the image, right away, we don't need to explain it. They can see that it could work on desktop and it could work on mobile. And then with the 3 points that we have, we're following the rule of 3. We've got the 3 top benefits of the platform. So the first one is that they can view nearby projects. So really the map helps them see who else is in the area that has the material they need. And by collaborating with nearby project sites, they're saving a lot of money on trucking fees. And this is where a lot of the construction companies end up wasting a lot of money where they have to ship that dirt over sometimes 3 hours. In some cases here in Vancouver, I've heard of companies that have spent 7 hours shipping it over to the next province because they couldn't find where to send it. So by collaborating with nearby sites, they are saving a lot of time and money and also protecting the environment. Now, the second benefit is filter. So they can filter based on the type of material, because in construction there are different materials. It could be rocks, it could be boulders, it could be sand, it could be clay. So there are many different criteria. And the last one is the important one, which is they can download and upload photos and supporting permits. Now, this is very important, especially now in the construction industry where they need to be more transparent. So rather than calling around saying, send me these files, now they can go on the platform, they can upload these files, and anyone who wants to ask can look at the files without wasting time calling everyone around. So you can see here how in 4 slides we were able to tell the whole story. Now, even if you're not there to explain it, if somebody is looking at these 4 slides, they've already understood what is the problem, the urgency, what is the solution, and what is the benefits of these solutions. So in this particular case, 2 slides were enough. We were able to combine the solution and the benefits, but there was no secret sauce because this is a very simple solution. Now anyone can go in there and copy this company. They can just open the same platform, they can start getting people to use the system. But the real advantage here could take place once the number of users is larger. So this is a play where the first company that is able to get the most users in a specific location is the company that could have that advantage. So once PhilConnect now, they are getting a lot of users. It's one of the prominent players in British Columbia, and as more people use it, but it could become more valuable to investors if the government says, you know what, you have to use this system. Then it becomes like, okay, this is the only solution right now, that most of the users are there, that's where everyone is going to go. So that's how it might become later on, but for now, solutions and benefits is all there is on this slide. Now, here's the other example that has a patented solution. So this particular slide has the secret sauce. It has the underlying magic. But you're going to notice now we did not have one specific slide for it. I'm going to show you how we added that into the story. So you're familiar with the cover slide, turning forest residue into sustainable biofuel. And in this particular case, we needed 2 problem slides, as you will see why when we get to the solution slide. So we've got the first problem, which is that all of this logging material is now going to waste, and it's creating a fire hazard and creates excess CO2. The second problem is that the world now needs to reduce their CO2 production, and this is disrupting industry, specifically power plants, because they still rely on coal. So now is the big reveal, ta-da, and here's the solution. Now the solution is the patented technology from Global Biocoal. Now a patent is a type of intellectual property that gives the owner legal rights to exclude others from making or using or selling a similar solution for a specific period of time. And Global Biocoal has that patent, which means that for the next few years until a specific time, they are the only ones that are allowed to provide this particular solution, which makes the company more valuable, especially because this is an investment presentation. So you can see here we've added the secret sauce, we've added the underlying magic without really creating an extra slide for it. So we've got on the left, we've got the forest residue, which was really problem number 1, that all of this bark and leaves and excess that's left from the forest residue that rots and usually causes a fire hazard. Now Global Biocoal can take it, it goes through the patented technology, and then it comes out as a product called biocoal or biochar. Now on the next slide, we needed to answer a question that many investors are thinking. Well, is this product going to be ready for the market? Can it really be used, or is it just kind of fictional? So the next slide really answers that question. You can see here these are the details and the benefits of this specific product. So you can almost call this that this is the product slide. The first one was the general solution. So we're showing on this slide ready to meet market demand. So you can see here we don't call it solution. Always try to use the title strategically. Use that real estate wisely and put a statement rather than just call it solution or benefits. And so we have the benefits right below it, that it's ready to serve the power plants, it's ready to serve cement and steel production. So there's a big demand. And right away we're highlighting the product and showing that it has a BTU, which means it can be used right away in the industry because it's very similar to the actual coal that is mined from the mines from the ground. So you can see here in this particular case, we used 2 slides, but we were able to answer all of the 3 questions. So let's going back to the storyboard. You can see here we've got 2 problem slides and we've got 2 solution slides. But even though it's only 2 slides, we were able to answer the entire 3 questions. So I'm showing you this example so that you don't get stuck thinking that you need 3 slides. If they fit on 1 slide, then by all means add them. If you need 2 slides, it's really flexible here. And you get to adjust that based on your story. Now I'm going to show you now, well, what about services? What if you have a services? How would you introduce that? So here's a commercial template that I found on Canva. Now the reason I'm showing it to you, it's not because of the design, but because they've actually done a good job with the storytelling. So you can see on the cover slide, you don't even need a logo. You can just call it digital agency, anything, whatever kind of service. You've got a placeholder for a value statement. So this is where you can provide that statement of what you can do to your clients. And rather on the next slide, rather than talking about, hey, here's what we do, which is what most agencies do, which is what most designers do, they start talking about themselves. In this case, they are talking about the problem. So rather than calling it problem, they just gave the title, a very good title, 4 major digital marketing issues. Now, I do like that. It could be 3, it could be 4. Try to limit it, try not to make it too many. 4 in this case works because it fits well on the slide, but if it's 3, it would be better. And they're talking about what are the major digital marketing issues. Now, of course, this is fictional, it's a template, but it's a good example of what you might do for services. Now, the next slide really still doesn't talk about the services. You can see here, the next slide is the general solution. So they're giving 3 tips of what could be the general solution to these problems they talked about. Now, if I was working on this, I would try to make it 3 problems with 3 solutions, try to match it. But this is, of course, a template with placeholders. So I'm just showing you examples that in some cases, it's okay to break the rules a little bit, but you have the solution. Now, the next slide is, well, what is our general solution? And in this case, well, they're saying, ta-da, here's the big reveal. This is our solution. So now you have a place where you can repeat a little bit of what was on the slide, on the cover slide. So you can see here, they also use that opportunity to put some badges, some numbers. So they're showing something that we're going to talk about later, which is traction on this slide. So once we cover the traction section, you can see here that it's flexible. You can also show proof right away when you're showing your solutions. So this is their general solutions. And now the next slide, we're diving a little bit deeper. So what are the details or the benefits of the solutions? Well, then this is when they revealed, here are the 3 services that we work on. Now, if you wanted to expand this even more, you might create a different slide for each service. That would be for something on if you're talking to a warm audience, or if you're trying to close the sale. Now, going back to that outline, you'll notice we've got the cover, we've got the problem, solution, our solution, the details. You'll notice this can work very well for a website as well. So if you get that pitch deck done, it's a good hierarchy and it sets the tone of what you might put on your website. Now, let's look at one last example for companies that might be in the idea stage. Well, what if you just have an idea? You haven't even built your company yet. And this can work internally as well. If you're proposing a solution in your company and you want them to bring a budget for a specific project that you want to work on, this can work as well because you haven't developed it yet. You don't have the solution. You haven't started the project yet. You just need funding to get started. So this would be a good example. Now, you've seen this before because I showed it to you. It was a good example with the cover slide with HWAYDA, because you can see here, you don't even need to have a logo yet. You don't even need branding. You could start selling while you're on the idea phase. So you've got the cover slide, which you've seen before. You've got the problem slide, which you've seen before in the other video. And now let's see, how did they introduce the solutions? Now, if you'll notice that on the problem slide, there were 3 specific points. And on the solution slides, they have 3 specific points as well. Now, the reason I chose to show you this specific example, because I feel they've done a good job with matching the solution to the problem. Now, let's go back to the problem slide. You'll notice that the first problem was lack of access to bank and credit services. Not everyone has a credit card or account. So it was talking about lack of access. Now, let's go to the solution slide. You'll notice that the first solution, they're talking about accessibility. Anyone with a device can use our mobile payment app. And the same thing now with the second and third point. If you read what is the second problem and the third problem, you're going to find that they match very well. Now, looking at the solution slide, they've got accessibility, convenience, and cost effective. Now, do these 3 words remind you of anything? Well, they might remind you of the common differentiators that we talked about earlier on the cover section. Remember where you had to do this exercise and go through the list of the common differentiators and pick specific words that describe your solution or something that can help you stand out. So in this particular case, HWAYDA has picked out these 3 words: accessibility, convenience, and price, which is really the cost-effective factor about it. Well, now going back to the presentation storyboard, you can see that the 4th slide is called vision. So it's not a value proposition, it's not a solution or a specific product. That's because they have not developed it yet. So it's still in the idea phase. So you can see here how they put their vision as what they're proposing to create. So they say we aim to be the go-to provider of secure and cost-effective mobile money solutions. So this is where you can see now you can mix and match these statements, and when you are creating your storyboard. So now you can see why we spent a lot of time on the cover slide section going through the different statements, because they can help you talk about the problem. They can also help you talk about the solution. So the 4th slide is the vision. Now the 5th slide is timing. So now you're trying to tell investors or your team who want to fund this budget, well, why is this a good time to be focusing on this particular vision? Why should we be spending our time and money on it? So they called it, it's time to level up. Now, once again, I like that because they did not call it timing. They did not call it why now. They used the title strategically to convey that story. And then they put 3 bullet points below that to explain why this is a good time. So I think they've done a great job at it, and the graphics all matches. And now the question will be, well, if it's the right time, well, it's the right time for who? Who really needs this? And that's when they introduce their target market. So you can see here, Now, of course, this is very general. Individuals and small to medium businesses is very generic. Ideally, you want to be a bit more specific. But I wanted to show you how the storyboard all works together to help you tell that story. So that's why when people say, what should I put on my solution slide? What should I put on my cover slide? Well, the big question is, it depends. It depends. What are you, who you're talking to? Are you promoting an idea, or are you promoting a particular product or service? Do you have results or you don't have results? There are many factors that can impact your story. So now as we continue, really your action item is to just start a storyboard. Try it based on your circumstances. What type of slides do you think you need to tell that story? Now you can worry about the order later, but if you have the components of the storyboard, that's what's important right now. Don't worry too much about the graphics, just jot in the main points as text, and then you can jazz up the design later on when we get to the design process, and you can fine tune the messaging later once you have a bit more time. Right now we're just plugging in what do we need to include in this story. So go ahead, and I'll see you in the next video where I'm going to show you how to focus more, especially if you have more than one solution. So go ahead, get started, and I'll see you in the next video.